Well, what did I pardon myself for?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I have no contemplation of pardoning myself for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, is that a cell phone? You didn't do anything wrong. Well, what about your brother and your other brother and your sister and your sister-in-law and your sister's husband, i.e. your brother-in-law? They all got pardons for anything they may have done, any crimes they may have committed going all the way back to 2014. This doesn't seem like it should be legal. And actually, is it? Let's bring in our experts. Joe diGenova, the former U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., Barak Lurie, noted attorney and radio talk show host, and Eric Eggers, the great researcher, along with Peter Schweizer and host of that Drilldown podcast. Joe diGenova, when you heard about this, what did you think? And what are the legalities of this? What does it actually mean?
Well, I expected it completely. It just, and I thought it would happen at the very last minute in order to get smothered in inaugural activities. It's perfectly legal. There's nothing anybody can do about it. However, they don't have Fifth Amendment rights anymore. They can be subpoenaed, brought before a congressional committee, and if they lie, they can be prosecuted for perjury. So the pardon does not protect them from future crimes, such as lying under oath to a congressional committee.
All right, but how about this? Isn't there some, I mean, it's for crimes that they may have committed. They're not specified. And I don't remember, but when they gave one of these to Richard Nixon, there was all kinds of speculation. Hey, the president can't do that. Barak Lurie, it doesn't specify what crimes they committed. So is there some wiggle room? I mean, do they really get off scot-free?
You know, it's really a challenge. I don't think that this has ever been done before. I've never really faced this particular issue before, where everything is so vague that you can't really pin anything. It's like pinning Jell-O to the wall. So I think that the biggest loose end here is that Joe Biden didn't pardon himself. That is something that I'm really fascinated about. I actually thought that and predicted that he would pardon himself before he actually left. I was wrong about that. But I think at the end of the day, that leaves him open to be the big kahuna, the big guy, and the only guy that's available to actually prosecute. The question is whether they will prosecute him because he's a doddering old man who's got dementia, just like the previous attorney general who decided not to pursue him for the classified documents case. So it's very interesting. I do think that the pardon will stick with regard to the family members. They'll certainly be able to waive that, because if they didn't, then Trump won't be able to pardon other people with whatever he wants to do in a vague sort of way as well. So it's definitely new territory, but it's a real challenge for anyone to say that Jim Biden, for example, the brother, should be prosecuted because of this pardon.
Well, we know that they got tens of millions of dollars from Ukraine, Romania, and China. And I also heard from the House Oversight Committee that they didn't pay taxes on any of that money, Eric Eggers. What do you think of all this? And I can't get my hands around it. I feel like they still have criminal exposure, or they should.
They definitely should. After all, as you may be well aware, and I know maybe Joe knows as well, there's a Supreme Court ruling in 1915 in which they held that an acceptance of a pardon is an implicit admission of guilt. So who knows what future exposure they may have. I mean, heck, Frank Biden's still on the hook for the $1 million he owes that family from a '99 car crash he was party to. But what's clear is, and I think the most interesting thing, it starts on that January 1st, 2014 date, the same day that Hunter Biden's pardon began. That's when all of the business dealings, the deal with China, the deals with Burisma, they all get cranked up. And Greg, as you and I have spoken about before, the fact that it goes through today and covers the period of time when they were setting up the Biden Center. We know Valerie Biden was integral in that. What negotiations did any of those Biden family members have with foreign entities? Foreign money came through the Biden Center when Joe wasn't vice president and he was about to run for president. What conversations did any of the Bidens have in order to get Joe Biden to agree to step down for running for re-election? That, to me, remains the key. If there was any sort of a quid pro quo, if there's any kind of talks of extortion or bribery, they would now be excused from that. That, to me, is the central question that they appear to have now been legally absolved from.
Yeah, that we still don't know the details about how that all went down. I think that New York Times story over the weekend did not tell the real story, or certainly the entire story. All right, the cover story for this is, well, Donald Trump is going to weaponize the Justice Department and come after his political enemies, i.e. what they just did. But they are going to sell that, Joe 𝑑𝒍𝒂, and the media are going to buy it. Quite frankly, there's a media blackout on this story. I know that there are inaugural balls to cover, but still, this is huge.
Well, I think the media is almost irrelevant at this point because this information gets out through the new means and the new media. People know what's going on. They understand that the Biden crime family are a bunch of grifters, that they're corrupt, and that this was done to protect the family because crimes were committed. So the issue is, what are congressional committees going to do about it? And you can conduct grand juries, by the way, to find about the involvement of other people and other crimes. They're still going to have to testify. They don't have any Fifth Amendment rights anymore. And again, if they lie to a grand jury or a Senate committee, they can be prosecuted for perjury. I'm perfectly happy to have people indicted for perjury, given the level of conduct here. Joe Biden did what he knew he had to do to protect his family facially. And believe me, I'm from Wilmington, Delaware. I was born and raised with the Bidens. They're going to go back into a small southern town. You talk about a town without pity. I would just love to be up there for a few weeks watching these clowns roam around and try to get somebody to have lunch with them.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they got that state wired. For instance, the Delaware News Journal. The Delaware News Journal has never written one word of the work we did with Bill Stevenson on the show, the great guy, ex-husband of Jill, who blows this whole thing wide open. So they have a refuge, I think, in Delaware. But let's see what happens. You guys are the best. Eric Eggers, Brock Lurie, and Joe 𝑑𝒍𝒂, to be continued.